Alright, it's time. The gloves are coming off. It's time to get real. It's time to get personal. It's time to rage a little. Because it is the month of Valentine's, and if there's one thing that you guys should know by now, I hate it. I really hate it when people write toxic relationships into their stories and think it is the sweetest, most pure thing that they have ever done. Oh, it infuriates me. And in today's writer's rant, I am going to get down as to why this is happening. And no, I'm not going to have any sort of sweet, nice, lovely background footage of wonderful couples to show like this is what you should be doing. No, I want you to suffer with me, which is why I have all of this footage of myself getting killed repeatedly in Elden Ring, so that way you can fully feel my frustration at this particular topic when it comes to writing. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and this is a particular stumbling block in the adventure of writing that needs to be overcome somehow. Now, two things at the onset of this video. Number one, if you know how we do writers' rants here on this channel, we normally upload them the first Monday of every month. However, I am not uploading this video on the first Monday of February, and that's because we actually have something special planned for each Monday of this particular month, and I'll get to that in a little bit later on in the video. The second thing is this. I fully understand and accept that there is a wide market for all different kinds of romance stories. You want your smut? By all means, there is an entire section at your local Barnes & Nobles just for that. Go ahead and enjoy. You want toxic relationships in your story? I actually don't mind if you have that on in there. I am not opposed to doing that. In fact, I am right now myself writing into a story of very toxic relationship. It can actually be very rewarding to have those kinds of things within a story. And I'll get more as to why that is here in a bit. So you can have that. There is a massive market for all different kinds of romance stories. And if you like what you like, go ahead, find that, read that. If you like what you like, go ahead and write that. The problem is this, that these toxic and honestly horrifying relationships are being presented as good things. And that is not okay, especially within the realms of fiction, because what you write does have an influence on your audience. Mature audiences who know what they want and understand what they're getting themselves into are more than free to go ahead and consume what they want to consume. Those stories are out there for them. Let them have at it. That is perfectly fine in my opinion. The problem is that a lot of these stories are getting into the hands of younger readers, and they're being told this is what you can expect. This is healthy. And I have been in the trenches with these younger readers as a teacher, and I have seen the effects of these particular stories as kids have consumed them and think that this is what romance in reality is actually like. And that is what I want to address right here, why this infuriates me so dang much. Alright, so like I said, the gloves are coming off, it's time to get real. And I'm not going to be sharing any names or any sort of specifics for any of these stories because those are private matters. However, it is still necessary, I think, for me to divulge my experiences right here. And it's sad because it always comes out at some of the sweetest times, the times that teenagers are supposed to be having fun. As someone who actually never got into a relationship back in high school, which is totally fine if you don't, I remember that I still always looked forward to stuff like the prom, to winter formal, and to Valentine's Day because those were my romantic chances. It always fell flat, but I still nonetheless had fun. And looking back at it, I'm glad that I went out on a limb, that I risked embarrassment for these particular days and moments because I honestly had fun. And that's what you should be having as a teenager. You should be having fun. Teens these days they're stuck in the little boxes of their screens. They're not actually going out and enjoying their lives. And those who are feel awkward because half of their classmates or more aren't actually doing that. It's this weird paradox, a dichotomy, and a horrible catch-22 situation for teenagers who want to just have fun. If you try to do that, you're seen as weird. So heaven forbid that you mess up when it comes to a romantic day. But in any case, when I was a teacher, there was every single Valentine's Day and every single prom and every single winter's formal, there was always a number of students who suddenly became very despondent. And for various reasons, some of them being, I just wish I could have a fun date. But everyone wants me to be together with this person because we would make such a sexy couple. But this person is abusive to me, even as quote-unquote friends, and I feel very highly uncomfortable doing that. But that's what everyone wants, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Another person, very explicit about their life, I am not happy in this particular relationship, but it's the best that I can get. I'm like, why is that? It's like, that's because this is the best it's ever going to be. I'm like, you're in high school. Your life is going to be so much better. Dump this person, move on. You're going to find a far better person for you in the future. No, this is the best I'm ever going to get. You then start talking to these kids. What are these? Well, why do they have these notions in their head that they should be in this toxic relationship? That this is the best that they're ever going to get? Well, come to find out, they all read a bunch of stories. They've consumed these stories, both fan fiction and traditionally published, that tell them that this is the best that they're going to get. That it's okay to be in an abusive relationship. That it's okay to be in a toxic relationship. That is the best that life is ever going to hand to them, and that they should just accept it, because if once they accept it, they will then be happy. Just enjoy the smexy sexiness. No, that is awful. That is a horrible message. It is destructive to young minds. I've seen so many kids throw away precious time, throw away great relationships, great friendships, great relationships with their family, because they believed firmly that a toxic relationship that they knew was bad for them was the best that they were ever going to get, and that they had to commit themselves to it. I remember one person in particular that I taught, an absolutely lovely student, fantastic individual, who was in 2 awful relationships while I was their teacher, and then finally, before they graduated, they managed to get away from all of that. And they were the most free, the most happy, the most excited, the most positive that I had ever seen them. And it was because they were finally out of those relationships. But while they were in those relationships, I remember them being all like, well, Mr. Jensen, you see, this is okay. And as a teacher, I mean, I'm allowed to give advice, but I'm actually limited in what kind of advice I'm allowed to give. I am not a trained psychologist. I am not a trained psychiatrist. I am not a trained individual on how to help people with relationship issues. I only know for myself what is good and what I have seen for other people. And just hearing from the student was just heartbreaking, because it's like, no, that is not okay. That is not okay in any sort of way. Now, the skeptic might say, okay, well, Lars, this is all anecdotal evidence, and teenagers are teenagers. Teenagers make dumb decisions. Teenagers are weird. 100% correct on both counts. However, we as creatives can do our part to help impart good messages, especially when it comes to relationships, to young readers. For one thing, I think it's vastly inappropriate for preteens to get their hands on explicit material. You can write intimacy up until a certain point, and we actually learned from Brandon Mull, they said one of the things that really differentiates what's for young readers and what's for older readers is not the amount of violence or even the amount of swearing within a story. It is physical intimacy, and that it is seen actually within our society and by publishers and by almost all metrics of what is good for young people, that explicit amounts of physical intimacy is not okay for preteens. And I agree with that. They can get more into that the older that they get. And for teenagers, as someone who writes primarily for teens and young adults, I like to have plenty of good romance in there. I like to make it awkward. I like to make it physical. But again, I try to think about, what is actually really appropriate? I know that teens get on and do their own things in their own private lives. I am not naive to the ways of the world. However, I still feel that it is my duty to show a healthy amount of restraint in describing some of these romances. And I've even said before in other videos that I actually think it's more rewarding when you leave it more up to the imagination of the reader. They can get way more invested in a story when they aren't reading every single little detail of the kiss and the undressing and the love making. Don't be like George R. Martin and write 15 pages of smut. Oh, that's so aggravating. Moving on, think about really what it is that you are presenting. Who is your audience? Again, more mature, more in control audiences who know who they are can handle that better because they know what they want. They know what they're getting themselves into. And those books should be written for more adult audiences. If you're writing for preteens and teenage audiences, you should be thinking about what is it really that you're communicating to them. Yes, I know that they get up to their own things in their own life, and that's their choice, that's their decision, but still, we want to be able to impart healthy messages to our young readers. So this is my solution to this matter, and I would especially love to hear what other authors actually have to say on this particular matter, but this is my solution, and we'll see what you guys think about it. If you are writing for a younger audience, preteens, teenagers, or young adults, I think it is very important to make it clear which relationships within your stories are healthy and positive and which ones are unhealthy and very much negative. Being able to clearly differentiate between the two is so very important, especially for very impressionable people. One of the things that irks me so much, so much, from comics to manga to anime to books for young audiences is when they show what is clearly a bad relationship in a good light. It's one of the things that really, especially when I read manga, very much aggravates me. How many shonen manga there are out there that especially, this is such a problem for isekai manga at this particular time, is that's all like, here is this relationship, which is absolutely manipulative, absolutely toxic, absolutely an abuse of power from one character over the other, and we're going to write this off as it's so cute, it's so awesome, this is what men should aim for, and this is what girls should aim for. It annoys me. And yes, I know it's a dynamic of the power fantasy, and it's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be obliterated, in my personal opinion. But it's not just in manga, it's actually across almost all forms of fiction that we see unhealthy power dynamics. And it's something that I've begun to notice way more often within LGBTQ representations of romance. So many of them are framed in such a way that one partner within the relationship has an unhealthy amount of power and control over another. I was working with one novice author on what was supposed to be a very romantic scene between two LGBTQ characters and what it would be like when they finally accept their feelings for each other. And I was trying to be like, okay then, well, this is supposed to be a very precious, very private, very intimate moment. This is the respectful way that you would probably want to address this. And the author for this particular story was like, no, I want anger, I want passion, I want smut. And I'm like, but that kind of takes away from the beauty of this romance right here. And they're like, no, this character is supposed to absolutely dominate this one, but in a nice way. So that way the recipient realizes that this is how much this person loves them, that while they could dominate them entirely, they're not going to dominate them all the way because they're precious to them. And I was like, I'm out. I no longer feel comfortable with this. That is awful. That is a horrible way to represent things. And again, coming back to my time as a teacher, I saw this so many times with my LGBTQ students, how many of them were in openly abusive situations where their partner was dominating them and they thought that was romance. No. from queer to straight, that is not okay in any kind of way. And it is especially not okay for young audiences or for young people, because there's no basis for a good, healthy relationship. I draw the line right there. I'm not crossing that. So again, what can be done? What I believe can be done is differentiate between the healthy and the negative relationships. Make it very, very clear which is which. Bring it up within your story. One of the things that I have actually found very rewarding for myself while writing my flagship series, The Legend of the Ten Lords, is taking one relationship that everyone thinks is very healthy, very positive. Everyone across the entire world of Halley Crews looks to this one couple and is like, that is the dream couple, that is the power couple, that is what everyone should be like. And then book by book, slowly peeling back the curtain and showing that this is a very unhealthy relationship, and that one of the people within this relationship has convinced themselves that everything is okay, everything is fine, and is turning a blind eye to a very horrible partner and their tendencies. And what that actually means, not only for the world, but especially for these people, because if this one truth could be revealed to the person within this relationship, everything in the story might change. The series could actually end a whole lot sooner. And that is the power that a very negative relationship can have, especially with characters who wield immense magical godly powers. So it's good to show this is a negative relationship. And in another relationship within that series, which was really neat because I'd never planned for it, it was one that I kind of discovered as I wrote, it has been an absolute joy to explore that relationship and show how it goes from awkward crush and awkward flirting to way more openness and healthiness, and how, you know what, as teens, you're going to make mistakes, and there are definitely some mistakes within this particular relationship, and you know what, that's fine so long as you learn from those mistakes and try to be a better person and try to be good to your romantic partner. And that has been so rewarding to write. I've really enjoyed it. And in other stories where I have written established couples, and I just show like, hey, look, from queer to straight, this is what a good, healthy, equal partnership looks like, and this is what makes this kind of love absolutely beautiful. And with one of the stories I'm currently writing, to then show this is obviously a very bad relationship. Yes, you get your intimacy within this particular relationship. If any of you think that this is sweet or lovely, you and I need to have a talk, because it is not the intimacy that makes a relationship good. It is everything that comes before. The conversations, the understanding, the friendship or the lack thereof, the understandings. All of those things lead up to actually a good relationship. And that's what we need to put into our stories if we're going to write romances. And yes, I understand that means a whole lot more work on our part, but it is worth it, because that is what our stories deserve. That is what our characters deserve, and that is what our impressionable audiences deserve as well. So, for the third time, to reiterate my point, differentiate between healthy and toxic relationships within your stories, especially for those that are being written towards younger, more impressionable audiences. Let us communicate to these impressionable minds, these people who live out what they believe, what they read, what they watch. Let's communicate to them that certain aspects of this particular relationship are unhealthy, that they are not good in any kind of way, and that aspects of this other relationship are positive, that this is something that you might want within a good relationship, within your own relationships with other people, especially your romantic ones. Because if we can communicate these better values, we might be able to do a whole world of good to so many struggling teenagers and young people out there who find themselves locked into horrible relationships and sincerely believe that this is the best that they're ever going to get, because that is what the world continues to tell them, especially what their stories that they consume tell them. And I know that there's a bunch of people out there who are like, well, teens don't really read so much anymore, and they're just stuck on their phones just watching TikTok, and that's all that they ever consume. Don't assume that. in any kind of way. Again, as a teacher, yes, I know how many teenagers sit down and just watch TikTok or dumb YouTube videos. However, you don't see what they're doing with their free time. And I've caught quite a few students that I would never have expected sneaking reading books when they thought no one else was watching. Or how many kids who you thought weren't actually reading would then come up to you later on and be all like, so Mr. Jensen, I read this book recently. Or Mr. Jensen, I watched this movie recently. Mr. Jensen, have you checked out the show recently? And I'm like, I didn't know you could even read. Your writing really sucks. But the fact of the matter is that kids are actually reading. We just don't always see it. Kids are watching movies, are watching shows. They're not just stuck on TikTok or on stupid YouTube videos. They are consuming stories. They absolutely are. And those stories have a massive amount of influence over them. And so that really comes down to us as the creators of these stories to really think about what kinds of things we are telling them. Yes, write what you want to write. Tell the story that you want to tell. But I honestly do believe that if you're writing to a younger, more impressionable audience, that it is also your responsibility to help kids differentiate between what is good and what is bad within your story. If you want to write a toxic relationship, go ahead. But make sure that people know that this is a bad relationship. And if you can do that, I think then that you have done your part to help educate your audience about what is good, what is bad within this particular setting, and then you leave it up to them to make their choices. None of what we do will remove their ability to choose for themselves what they want and what they're going to do. But if we can do our part to at least put some good out there and to put some awareness out there into the world for all kinds of kids, of all ages and of all nationalities and all places, we can do our part to promote healthier relationships. Because by golly, I don't ever again want to be in a situation where I have to be with a teenager who's like, I am in a horrible relationship and this is the best it's ever going to be for me. And I'm like, no. I want to be able to communicate long before that moment happens that no, you do deserve better. What you're experiencing right there is not okay. And you can have a better, healthier relationship. So for this month of Valentine's, during a time where everyone's thinking about love, romance, chocolates, rom-coms, dates, proposals, weddings, all that good jazz, all that lovely romantic stuff, let's think about what we can do to help promote healthy relationships out there through our stories, because we absolutely do have an influence. It's something that we need to take responsibility for, and it's something that I firmly believe that we can have a very positive impact on to help young readers realize what is good and what is bad in their romantic relationships. Now, with all of that being said, this rant actually went on a little bit longer than I expected, but there's a whole lot more to say. Honestly, I'm just getting started right here, but I think from this point on, to have these kinds of conversations, it would be very important to have a dialogue with other writers out there. So I will leave that for a future time. However, one thing that I do want to do, and this is why I am releasing the rant right now rather than on Mondays, because each Monday of this month, I am going to look into a manga that surprised me with how good its romance was. Like I said earlier in my rant, one of the things that just really annoys me with so many manga is when they take a relationship that is awful and they try to present it as something that is good. Well, I have come across 4 manga that I was expecting to be absolute romantic train wrecks. I was reading them to just kind of fuel my anger for these problems I see in romance stories. And then I was genuinely shocked when they took what I thought was a horrible premise or a horrible relationship and managed to turn it around to say, yes, actually, that was toxic. Now, let's transform it into something better. I've already been doing my reviews for Please Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro seasons 1 and 2, which is a fantastic example of taking a very toxic relationship at its core, at its beginning, and transforming it into a hilarious, funny friendship, and eventually into a very beautiful romance. That's really shocking. Please go check out the anime Nagatoro and its manga, because that is quality romance writing, and definitely shows again the difference between a toxic relationship and what is a healthy relationship. Really top tier stuff. But there are 4 other stories that I want to introduce to you if you haven't already heard about them, which show the difference between toxic and healthy, and definitely elevate these relationships and show what good romance ought to be. So I hope that you will be sticking around for those videos. I'm going to release one review for those mangas each Monday of this month. It's going to be awesome. You might have heard some of these stories. You might not have. In any case, it's going to be great. And in the meantime, if you're looking for more solid writing advice, where we get more into the technical aspects or we review certain stories of what they did good, what they did bad, please feel free to check out our other videos here on our YouTube channel. You can also head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works, where you get to hear from the entire harem, which is always great. And if you're looking for writing exercises, we have those over for you novice authors at our Pinterest page. And if you'd like to join our ever-growing community of novice authors, please feel free to subscribe. Check out our other stuff in the description down below. You can also support us by checking out the books that we've published. That would be of immense help to us. So please check out all that stuff in the description down below. But otherwise, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, especially through the more uncomfortable, embarrassing, and sometimes enraging parts of this adventure, but we very much appreciate it. So again, thank you, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.